and thank you all for coming. Can you hear okay? Okay. I'm going to read a mix of poems from books that are available here, and some newer stuff that's available only in magazines, or you'll have to hold in your ear until you can find it in print somewhere. I had the good fortune of not having enough money when I was an undergraduate to go full-time to school, so I did a lot of other jobs, to support myself through there, and I found I enjoyed it a lot. Very much enjoyed working, whether it was in a warehouse or a shipyard or whatever, and then going to school. If I had just had to work those jobs with no light at the end of the tunnel, I would have been horrified. But in the long run, I'd have been horrified also if I just taught. So after I taught for a while, I took a leave from teaching. I had the good fortune of having some grants, and did a bunch of other stuff, including working in a mine. And I don't think too many people who've been writer in residence at Amherst College, for instance, have also worked in a mine subsequent to that, before that. So here's a poem from the book called White Boots. White Boots is a name for ghosts in many of the mines in the United States. I worked in a copper mine, copper and gold, and but also in coal mines and so on. The idea of white boots always struck me as odd. This is what you would see in the dark. When you work in a mine, you have a headlamp, but that's all the light you have. They're not lit, and you go into dark places. It is a dark place, and you are the light when you're walking around with that headlamp on. And if you want to disappear, you turn it off. Nobody knows what you're doing down there. But at the end of the day, you have to have processed so much ore, so you better be able to do that too. So white boots is what you would see if you saw somebody walking around down there, but I would question at least their sexual preference. Anybody wear white boots down in a mine, And I found it very interesting that I never heard anybody talk about that as a problem, for an image in the mines, white boots. Cheerleaders maybe, but white boots in a mine. This is for Jim Davis. He did the cover painting, which is about 6 feet by 8 for $40,000. You can pick up a copy yourself, or you can get it on the book for 12, I think it is. As you know, Jim, I did work underground in the same mine you've imagined in your studio, half a mile down, taking wages enough to make it to California, and fool's gold enough to remind me I don't know much after all. New guys like myself, still thrilled by the dangers of fire or falling through the dark into a hole followed by 20 tons of dusty rumbling ore, we all tried to stay alert each minute of the 8-hour shift. And for a week or two, alert we were. Then habit made us careless as the rest. So we'd pocket our safety glasses, let dust masks dangle from our necks, and sometimes catch each other stepping out across open shafts, without first snapping our lanyards to the rusty cables overhead. The buddy system wasn't much observed, so like the rest come break time, I'd kick back alone against the stone wall and light up, flicking my headlamp off. So the dark expanded, flowing gently through my eyes. In the distance, sometimes a solitary hunched figure projecting its small wedge of light would glide by my line's entrance, tiny as a fly in a tear of amber, from where I watched, invisible and isolate as a stone in outer space or inner space, just some guy. Never sold white boots in those days, but often thought how all those men just lost in the sunshine mine must have felt. Poor bastards who lived long enough to feel, long enough to lose everything in their minds but hope, before their air was gone, long after their light. You'd have to kill your light to keep from igniting whatever gases might be seeping from walls. So dark is where you'd be, whether by yourself or in the company of others. In such a dark, I had no need of white boots, my friend. But looking at this image, startling, almost comic, you've drawn from the dark of blinding inks and your own heart familiar with disaster. I'm reminded now of how it is the living keep hold of the things that bind them to those gone. How gypsies, when a loved one's dying, will help the one failing stay just a little longer by turning a wooden chair upside down to hold between them. On one leg, a living hand, the dying on another, until, ready, it falls free. But the thing is the clasp itself across that final distance, how it allows those last things that need saying to be said. That's how it's always seemed to me, with art I mean, whether it's paint on canvas or ink on a page, it's the chance for what knows it must die in us to join what knows it will live forever. And knowledge from such a common depth only survives in the light as shadow, as white boots, imago, as a way, meanwhile, to stay in touch while the sun burns on.